What's going on, traders? We got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about the SPY, the triple Qs, and are we currently looking at a top? Before we start, like, subscribe, comment your thoughts below. Let's get into the video. So right now we're looking at the SPY weekly time frame, and in our past few videos, we've been talking about how frustrating it is that the SPY continues to make new highs. We saw the triple Qs make new highs, but we're not seeing that correlate across the market. We're not seeing the Mag 7 really go crazy. You got Apple doing its thing, but you're not really seeing that correlation across the board or that momentum carry across the board. And so that led me to believe that maybe I'm just missing something here. And so we go to the SPY weekly time frame and we go all the way back to 2021. And as you guys can see, if we draw a trend from 2021 to this current date, we have been constantly rejecting this trend. Now, maybe you think I'm coping, maybe you think I'm a perma bear, whatever the case may be. So let me prove my case. Just hear me out. So we go to the daily time frame here and we zoom in. And crazy enough, as crazy as this sounds, every time we hit this trend line, guys, every single time we hit this trend line, we get bad news. Here, we consolidated above the trend line. Jerome Powell spoke. We sold off. Here, we got DeepSeek AI news. We sold off. Here, we got tariff news. We sold off. Here, we got more tariff news, I believe. We sold off once again. Ironic, convenient, I don't know. You guys let me know in the comments below. But again, every single time we hit this trend line, we sell off. So are we looking at a top? And I think it's very much possible that this could be the top, but it's also possible that we could continue to make new highs. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I think it's going to happen, but I don't think it's going to happen the way we want it to. I think it's going to be pretty annoying if we continue to make new highs. I think we're going to continue to see the same moves over and over where if we are going to make new highs, we're just going to consolidate over and over. We're just going to make new highs, break down, make new highs again, break down, make new highs again, break down over and over. And I do think this is possibly going to be the move all the way leading into Nvidia earnings, right? Now, can we just break down from here? Absolutely. But if we're going to continue to make new highs all the way to 616, you guys know that that is one of my all-time high targets, then I do think this is going to be the move. I think it's going to be pretty annoying. I don't think it's going to, I don't think we're going to just blast off and go crazy all the way to the upside. Would I like that? Absolutely. I would love that. This market is annoying. You guys know how I feel about it. It's annoying right now. No one's really winning unless maybe you're a scalp trader. And I even have scalp traders in the comments complaining, like, yeah, this is annoying. Okay. So, regardless, if we're going to make new highs, I just don't think it's going to happen the way we want it to happen, right? Now, in regards to downside, if we're talking about breaking towards the downside, one thing we're noticing is that 610 constantly gets reclaimed every time we break down. So obviously that is our key level. We break below 610, we're heading towards 609, and it's a pretty tight range. I will say that much. You get below 609, you're heading towards 607. After that, you get towards 605 psych level. But ultimately, guys, like I've been saying in the past few videos, you want to stay above 600. You break below 600, 598 is next. You break below 598, it's going to get pretty domestic. And I'm not talking about them type of fights your mom and dad has. Trust me, it's going to get a lot worse than that. All right. So that is what you want to pay attention to if you're talking about downside 600 and 598. As long as we stay above those levels, ultimately, we're bullish. Okay. So when we're looking at the triple Qs, triple Qs, pretty much the same thing. And if you guys notice, we're looking at these hangman patterns, right? Now, me personally, I would like the hangman pattern to be somewhat up here. I don't really like it being right here. But again, we're looking at these somewhat bearish patterns here. And so I do imagine that this could possibly play out. Now, is it going to play out tomorrow? Can't say for sure. Tomorrow is OPEX, very much possible. So we're probably going to see a lot of volatility. But right now, I just can't say if this is going to play out tomorrow. I think, again, we're probably going to see a lot of annoying movement leading up until Nvidia earnings. But once again, we just continue to fail to get above this Jerome Powell sell-off zone. So we want to see the triple Qs get above 540, 541. We get above that, we're looking at a move towards 543, 544, give or take. And then highest we could be looking at is about 546, or at least highest I'm looking at is about 546. Now, when it comes to downside, 533, we saw us retest that level of 533 today, and then we bull stepped in, we recovered back towards the upside. So 533 is obviously your key level here. You break below 533, you're heading towards 530, your psych level. After that, 528, 527, give or take. Ultimately, the key level of all levels that you want to see hold if you are bullish is 515. If you're bearish, you want to see this level get absolutely decimated, okay? You want to see it get destroyed, okay? Now, when we're talking about all-time highs, okay, I've said this before. we're looking at the Nasdaq. In order for the Mag 7, right, the Mag 7 to really go crazy, I do believe that the Nasdaq and the ES are going to need to break above this Jerome Powell sell-off area, right around 22,400, 22,500 site level. If the Nasdaq can break above this level, I do think you're going to see that correlation and that momentum carry across the market, right? 22K is your key level. We saw what happened today if you break below 22K. You saw a pretty, you didn't see anything too crazy, but you start to see that massive sell off. Okay, a decent sell off. Okay, not massive, but a decent sell off towards the downside. And you headed as low as about 21,960. So you definitely want to see 22K hold. If you decide to buy calls around here, me personally, I would not be looking to get calls here. You're pretty much between a rock and a hard place. You get calls here before we break above this trend line right here, and we'll talk about this trend line in a bit. You get calls here. Just don't be surprised that you wake up in the middle of Vegas and some random guy walks up to you and says, "I didn't know you can do all that with baby oil," and then he walks away, and then you're wondering what he meant for the rest of your life. All right, that's all I'm saying. Okay, so 22K is what you want to see hold. You break below 22K, it's going to get ugly. Okay, pack your bags. Pack your bags. Get ready to sell the house. Tell your son you're a disappointment at this point. All right. So that's all I'm going to say. Okay. Now, if we're talking about upside, we talked about this before. You want to get above this area right here. It's obviously very hard for us to get above this area. I mean, these are different type of animals right here. These aren't even bears anymore, guys. These are beluga whales or something, orcas. I don't know. Okay, these are a different type of species at this point. These guys they're clearly holding the market down. Okay, these guys are chilling at the beach. They're in Dubai somewhere drinking a Capri Sun. All right, so you definitely want to see us get above this level of 22,400, 22,500 on the Nasdaq. All right. Now, again, 22K, you get below 22K, you're looking at a move towards 21,900. After that, 21,800. Now, we go to the 4-hour time frame here, and it's pretty concerning. Okay, it's pretty concerning. When you go to the 4-hour time frame, you're making these minor lower highs here. Okay, you're making these very small lower highs, and then you even have a lower low here. So it's pretty concerning. You're right now you're retesting the supply and demand zone, and you can sell off right here. Okay, you can sell off right here. So again, you really want to be careful. We look at the weekly time frame for the Nasdaq, right? And we're looking at the same scenario that we just talked about on the SPY, where you're hitting this trend line over and over and you're rejecting it. And even when you get above it, bear step in and you reject. All right. So you want to be careful. Are we looking at a top scenario? It's very possible. Okay. It's very possible. I will wait to see what happens tomorrow. I'm not against making new highs. I'm just saying that this market is really suspect right now. Definitely want to be careful here. So, ES is telling a different story. And I tell you guys all the time, when it comes to the futures and ETFs, one is going to lie to you and one is going to tell you the truth. And so on an ES, we're looking at an ascending triangle. But not only are we looking at an ascending triangle, we are looking at a potential triple top. You got your top here, another top here. Now, when I say potential, I'm simply saying potential because there's no neckline being broken. So the triple top is not confirmed, but not only is the triple top not confirmed, the ascending triangle is not confirmed until you break those necklines. So we have to wait and see what happens. But when you go down to the 4-hour time frame on the ES, once again, just like we talked about on the NASDAQ, you're retesting the supply and demand zone. Not only are you retesting the supply and demand zone, but you're making these small lower highs. All right. So if we get a bearish candle here, you're making another small lower high here. So you definitely want to be careful with the ES. One thing I want to see what the ES do is reclaim 6150. If we reclaim 6150, we're somewhat safe. In order for more upside, we want to see a break above 6170. Okay, 6170, you break above 6170, your chances are you're heading towards 6200. So this very much can be a trap, right? This can be a bear trap, right? Or we go all the way down to the downside. We break all the way down towards the downside, retest the bottom of this ascending triangle again because we do have a lot of space in this area. And then we recover back towards the upside. maybe we just gather up liquidity because we're having a very hard time breaking new highs on the ES and NQ, and then we start seeing those all-time highs, and we start seeing those all-time high, that all-time high momentum carry across the market. All right, so that's what you want to see when it comes to the ES when we're talking about upside. You want to see 6150 get reclaimed. Again, when it comes to downside, you just want to see 6135 get broken through. Once you break below that, you're looking at a move towards 6120. After that, after 6120, you're looking at a move towards 6100. You definitely want to see 6100 hold when it comes to the ES. All right. So ultimately, okay, ultimately tomorrow I will wait 30 minutes until open. This is just me. You do what you want with this information. I will wait 30 minutes until open to see what happens because there's a lot of suspect activity going on when it comes to the SPY, right? And once again, we keep hitting this trend line and we keep getting bad news. So don't be surprised if we hit this trend line again, or maybe we don't even hit it again because we already pretty much rejected it today, but we reject it and we get bad news. All right. So definitely want to pay attention to news. If you don't believe me, if you're still ultimately bullish, I don't blame you. It's fine. I mean, we're constantly going towards the upside, but once again, I would love to see this momentum carry across the Mag 7. We look at IWM. IWM currently forming a descending triangle. Okay, currently forming a descending triangle. You got your high here, lower high here. You got a flat bottom here. You go down to the 4-hour time frame, and right now on the IWM, you are retesting this fair value gap. You retest this fair value gap, and so far you rejected it. All right, so definitely want to pay attention to IWM. If you continue towards the downside and you break below 224 on the IWM, you could be looking at a move towards 223. After that, you start getting to where these bulls are. All right. And once we start getting to where these guys are, let's actually map it out for you guys. Once you start getting towards these guys, they're going to start panicking. Okay, you break below 220 on the IWM, you stop these guys out of position, pack your bags, it's over with. All right, pack your bags. Don't even bother calling renters insurance quick because they're off today, right? They're off for that day. You're done. Okay, so you definitely want to pay attention to these guys right here. These bulls are going to try to step in once you start getting into that 220 range. If they fail and you break below 220 on the IWM, it's going to get pretty ugly. Now, IWM or the Russell is very sensitive to news. Okay, it's very sensitive to interest rates. It's sensitive to rate cuts and so on and so forth. So you want to pay attention to that type of news if it just so happens to come in. But again, across the board, things are looking suspect. All right, Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin is looks surprisingly good, and if we're talking about a leading indicator, Bitcoin could be a sign that we are looking at more upside. But again, I don't think that upside is going to happen the way we want it to. I think it's going to be a frustrating move leading into Nvidia earnings, right? So you definitely want to pay attention to Bitcoin as well. If Bitcoin can get above 99K, then we can start talking money. Okay, we start talking about some real money, some real money moves here. So I didn't plot Bitcoin. I'm not going to plot Bitcoin until it gets above 99K. Once it gets above 99K, obviously your cycle level is 100K. You get above 100K. We're talking about some crazy targets. I got some crazy targets for you guys. We get about above 100K on Bitcoin once again and actually hold. Because a lot of you see a move above a certain level and you instantly tag me. So you just want to see that move hold. Okay, you want to see it hold because what Bitcoin loves to do is stop hunt. Okay, it loves to stop hunt. So just because it gets 100 above 100K the first time doesn't mean it's going to hold. All right, it can easily be a stop hunt move. Okay, so that's what I'm looking at for Bitcoin. And so Nvidia still having a hard time. I mean, I don't know if it's hard to believe, but once again, Nvidia is still having the hardest of times holding above 140, guys. All right, 140. You want to see Nvidia hold above 140. Currently, after hours, it broke below 140 once again. If it can hold above 140, I would go as far as to say is 141, 141, then we can start talking about moves further to the upside. But until that happens, I just don't have much for Nvidia. It's just really annoying right now. Okay, so you definitely want to be careful here. Okay, I'm not interested in trading Nvidia to the upside until it actually reclaims that 140. Now we go to the daily time frame here. And as you guys can see, we're retesting the bottom of this rising wedge, which is an extremely bearish pattern. Now, when it comes to the short-term move for Nvidia, we talked about this before. I gave you guys a target of 113. We hit 113 right on the dot. We bounced off that target. But when we're talking about the ultimate projected move of this rising wedge, if you measure the opening close of this rising wedge, you're looking at a move all the way as low as the 100s, probably even lower than that. So we bring the measurement to the breaking point that we originally broke from, right? And we're looking at a move towards the 74, right? Now, before you go crazy and you're like, there's no way Nvidia could go that low. All right. Pre-split, 74 is $740, guys. Okay. So it's not impossible. Okay. I'm sorry. It's just not impossible. It's very much possible Nvidia can see that. Now, one thing I can say about earnings when it comes to Nvidia is that whatever it does for earnings, a few days or a few weeks after, it does the opposite. So if Nvidia beats for earnings and pumps towards the upside, which is very much possible, it can head towards like 160, 163. But then a few days to a week, a few weeks after, it starts to sell off, right? And you can go back in time and you can see this happen consistently. Right, so you go back to the last earnings. Nvidia pumped towards the upside, and then a few days after, sold off. No, actually, I think Nvidia missed. No, it didn't miss. It pumped a little bit towards the upside, and then a few days after, it sold off. Right here, same thing. Nvidia pumped a little bit towards the upside, sold off a few days after. Here, gapped up towards the upside, a few weeks or so after, and then eventually it started to sell off. So typically, whatever Nvidia does for its earnings, a few days to a few weeks after, it tends to do the opposite. So something to pay attention to for Nvidia earnings. And once again, I do think the market is kind of waiting on Nvidia earnings to see what happens, right? And so we look at a stock like Adobe, because I did talk about Adobe. I did give you guys Adobe, right? And then we're going to look at quant data after this, right? So when it comes to Adobe, I said March 7th. Okay, institutions are in no, not 480 calls for March 7th. So you still got some time for this. Right now, Adobe is just sitting on top of support here. Still looks okay. It doesn't look bad. It doesn't look terrible. If you don't have the patience for this type of trade, for swing trading, don't trade. Okay, don't trade. Okay, don't swing trade, I should say. All right, if you don't have the patience to hold through drawdowns during a swing trade, don't trade. All right. It's not for everybody. I completely understand. All right. Most retail traders just stick to day trading because they panic. They don't have the discipline to hold a trade for a long time or anything like that. So I completely understand. I've seen traders get into leap plays and they're panicking the next day. Like a whole trade that's a year out and they're panicking immediately the next day the moment they get some drawdown. So swing trading is not for everyone. But once again, March 7th is the date for those contracts. Ironic enough, Adobe has earnings March 12th. Historically, Adobe tends to run prior to its earnings. So here is a good example. It ran towards its earnings, broke down. All right. So again, if you don't have the patience for it, don't trade this thing. Okay. So right now, Adobe is sitting at support at around 453, 454, some give or take. Very liquid towards the upside. You do have a gap fill all the way at 543. Palantir. Palantir pretty much caught this on the money. We congratulations to Discord members. We traded Palantir back towards the upside. I told you guys once it hits this in the last video. I told you guys once it hits this gap fill support, chances are it's going to bounce. It bounced off about 95, 94. I think it's going to head towards 110. After 110, it's really tough to say, but there is a lot of turbulence here. So 110, and then it can either sell off and start filling this gap, which I think is going to fill this gap eventually, or it can head towards a retest towards 122, recreate that lower high or create that lower high, and then sell off. So definitely something you want to pay attention when it comes to Palantir. I do think it has a little bit more upside. It can head towards 110. After that, you definitely want to pay attention to it. Me personally, I would not have calls after 110. That's just me. Do what you want. All right. And so that's what I'm looking at for Palantir. Tesla. Um, I think Tesla is going to sell off. Today, we saw institutions get into puts for next week. They got into 342.5 puts. So Tesla can very much sell off. I don't think it goes without saying. I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to think that Tesla is not done selling off. And I do think Tesla can start heading towards the low two, not low, yeah, well, low 270s, about 275. So once Tesla gets there, I think that's a great buying opportunity. But for now, I just don't like Tesla here at all. The fact that it gave up 362, very bad sign. Um, if it gives up 350, then it's definitely going to head much lower. Once again, institutions are in 342.5. Puts, source, trust me, bro. All right, so quant data. So real quick, I just want to look at the SPY real quick because right before close, we saw something interesting happen when it comes to the SPY. We saw institutions load up on puts right before close. Now, these puts aren't anything crazy or anything. It's just 610 puts mostly. So we could see some type of sell off before, not before, but below 610 heading into tomorrow, or maybe sometime tomorrow, maybe into close. Tomorrow is OPEX, so it's probably going to be a very volatile day, if anything. So we're probably going to see a lot of swinging back and forth. You got 610 puts right here for April 17th as well. So these were loaded up at around 4:03 after market close. You can continue to trade about 15 minutes after close, depending on your broker, of course. But yeah, that's something you want to pay attention to when it comes to the SPY. All right, so that's all I want to talk about. Are we looking at a top scenario here? You guys let me know in the comments below. Keep it respectful as always. If you disagree, just simply disagree. Don't be a jerk about it, okay? If because when you're angry in my comments, it just shows me that you're not successful at trading, because anybody making money has no reason to be mad. All right, that's just me. I don't know if you're making money for real in the trading. If you're profiting in trading, what are you mad about? You know, your girlfriend dumped you or something? I don't know. So yeah. Other than that, Discord link is in the description below if you want access to our trade alerts. You also can join our website where we do text message alerts as well. So you'll get text alerts sent directly to your phone. And other than that, that's all I have. Again, let me know.